Money Shot, the Pornhub story, is Netflix's latest big ticket documentary that goes behind the scenes of Pornhub, the world's biggest porn website and the ninth most popular website of the world. Apparently, I've never heard of it personally. In all seriousness, I am actually interested in this kind of content. Yes, I know that sounds like I'm saying, "Oh, I just buy Playboy for the articles," but I actually mean it. The world of porn tends to bring with it not only a variety of baggage, but also a fascinating individuals and stories. When you blend all of those together, you also get an incredible sense of kind of found family, along with an absolute treasure trove of scandal for the likes of Netflix to part through. And kind of Netflix and the world of porn in terms of documentaries is actually a pretty good match. The problem, though, with a lot of projects like this previously is that the issues that they attempt to push have been really weak, making them more interesting human interest and evocative content that inspires people to take action. For example, in previous years, it focused on the patronizing, "Oh, but are these women really happy? Would you want your daughter doing this?" Angle discussing sex workers, which again is just dated at this stage. More recently, a lot of Pornhub specific content didn't really contend with the fact that this is something that inevitably will happen in industries like the kind of piracy taking over, and in a way that's kind of indicative of the industry as a whole. Money Shot tiptoes into this, and at one stage even compare it to the likes of Pirate Bay or LimeWire and their effect on movies or music. But a lot of the time, these arguments don't even reckon with the fact that the music industry developed Spotify and the movie industry adapted to streamers like, oh, I don't know, Netflix, aka the platform funding this, to combat piracy. So when you kind of say, what are we supposed to do when it comes to Pornhub? Again, the answer's out there. But the movie did discuss that and discussed how OnlyFans and user-generated content has helped performers to combat the changes that have happened. The problem is that these projects only deal with surface level issues. They either deal with the ignorant, smutty base level questions that we have and that aren't really our business, but don't actually affect the industry on a day-to-day basis, or it deals with the other side of that, which is industry pet peeves that we don't actually feel or think about rather than actual travesties. But in an industry as labyrinthian as this, there are huge levels of fascinating stories worth being told, such as John Ronson's The Last Day of August podcast, or last year's fictional movie Pleasure, that illustrated really well how even post Me Too, a lot of the new rules, quote unquote, intended to protect female performers were just sidestepped and actually used to gaslight them in aid of propping up the old patriarchal systems. While Money Shot does use the smutty, outrageous human interest to draw you in, it then kind of adjusts and focuses particularly on Nick Kristof's 2020 New York Times article, The Children of Pornhub, which I remember reading at the time. It's about exploitative underage or rape videos being posted without actual consent, the industry struggling and or just not trying hard enough to moderate against it, and the human impact at the end of it all. In a way, the documentary is quite brave in that it chooses to tell a quite nuanced story. For example, the questions that are being asked here is this a fault of Pornhub's inability to moderate properly? Is it journalists' misguided solutions to actually harm performers rather than those who post this kind of content? Or is it activists who just use stories like this to try shut down all sex work entirely because that's their real agenda? The problem is that the documentary doesn't really have a smoking gun here. It doesn't have a central villain, or it doesn't have even a victim for which to focus its story on. And these are really necessary pieces for documentaries like this, because at just an hour and a half, it's impossible for us to fully understand an entire industry and the various complicating factors at play without viewing it through either a villain or victim impact scenario. So while this is a well-made, edited slickly and cleverly with articulate contributors, without that direction, it's a bit like just listening to a taxi driver or hairdresser ranting about every frustration they have within their industry. You're not quite sure who to be mad at the end. You're just generally bothered on their behalf. Ultimately, that makes Money Shot a fine watch, which will generally improve your knowledge of the industry and the interesting day-to-day variables and challenges to those within it. But without that direction and focus, I couldn't tell you what they want us to do next or who the villain actually is. So I'm just going to leave this here and walk away from it. So unfortunately, like after watching a porn video and having this intimate connection with it in the moment, as soon as you're finished Money Shot, you'll likely just click onto the next thing that grabs your attention and have forgotten about it almost immediately.